Good afternoon. My name is Bowden. I'm the chair of the Shellfish Committee in the town of Penobscot, Maine. And I'm sure you're probably wondering where is Penobscot, Maine. So the first arrow, we're down in Rockland. The second arrow up top is the town of Penobscot. I live on the Bankadoose River, and there's a little pointer. Most of the river goes down through here. We're in a big tidal estuary up here. And this is Northern Bay. And between these 2 points, it's roughly 800 acres of soft plastic mud. So it's really good for hand-picking clams. So I'm going to try to give you an update of what we've done in the last 10 years in about 10 minutes. So let's see if I can do that. We started in 2008. We had a really good resource. We were harvesting through depuration about 150,000 pounds annually. Right from the beginning, our main concern was sustainability. How do we keep our harvesters employed? The first year we tried roughing flats, brushing, seed transplants, surveying, anything we could to see what we had for a resource. In 2009, we bought seed and planted it from DEI, and we did Dr. Beal's plant pot experiment to see what our growth rate was. So in 2010, we worked with our area biologists to do a clam recruitment study, and we took lobster trap doors, wrapped them with layers of plastic netting, and went out and stuck them in the mud to try and get some spat to settle. And as you can see, we had quite a few, and we tried different shapes and arrays. These are a couple 5-gallon pails. One was stuffed with netting, I think. This had a screen over it. Tried anything we could. This is a lobster bridge stuffed with shrimp twine. The best thing we found was AstroTurf. Really worked well. We got a lot of recruitment in those. Unfortunately, what we found was we had 100% mortality, mainly by moon snails. We did see some green crabs, but moon snails were our major problem, and there they are in a little telltale borehole. You may not be able to tell that's a dime. So they're pretty small snails that we were dealing with. In 2010, finally we got most of our flats opened up from water quality, and we were all happy clammers, and we didn't do a lot of conservation at that point. We were too busy digging. But we did, at that point, test our clams for heavy metal contamination because we're close to the Penobscot River, and we had a mine that operated in the 70s at one end of the river, so we were afraid of contamination from that, and we passed all those tests with flying colors, so we didn't have to worry about that. So then came the spring of 2011. And we all went out on the flats, and what we found were thousands of moon snails. So we kind of said, well, what are we going to do? What can we do? So our conservation project, we concentrated on 4 acres out of 800, and we picked up 1,800 snails and 7,000 callers. So we wondered, geez, did we make a difference? We could still see moon snails everywhere on the flats. So in the spring of 2012, we went out, and we didn't see a moon snail. And we said, wow, something happened. There's no way we got rid of them just by picking up a few thousand. What happened? No, this is what happened. Green crabs. They came, and they ate all the moon snails, they ate all the clams, they ate everything. And they really wreak havoc with Northern Bay, and we still haven't recovered from that. So in 2012, we tried to trap them. That is the result of 10 lobster traps with a 24-hour set, 12-hour set. We could go out and get a bushel of crabs in probably 20 minutes. So we gave up on that pretty quickly, saying there's no way we're going to trap 3,000 acres of the river. It's a losing battle. So we sat back for a couple of years, basically surveying the damage to see what had been done. because we knew we couldn't combat these green crabs, and eventually they'd eat themselves or eat everything and leave, which for the most part they did. But we finally came up with a question. Is the lack of a commercially viable soft-shell clam population in northern Bay due to the lack of a breeding population of adult clams or some other factor? So we really didn't know how to address that question. So we said, hey, let's plant some adult clams. The more spat we get in the water, it's a numbers game. Maybe we can make more juveniles than the crabs can eat. So we spent 2 years transplanting these big adult clams. In 2016, our area biologist had some extra gear and was interested in putting it in Northern Bay. And this is a recreation of Bowden's work in Massachusetts from 20s, 30s, 40s, quite a while ago. You know, I was happy to help and put this out and see what's going to happen. There were some pretty major flaws in the premise to this experiment, which we learned way back in 2009 with the plant pot experiment. If you're using existing mud, you're going to get whatever's in the mud in your box. So you're filling these boxes with mud, juvenile clams, worms, green crab. You know, it's what are you really learning? And when you go and fence in this whole area, or net this whole area, you know, that mud is solid full of green crabs under the mud. So they're just going to get into the box. Just because the net is over the box, you know, it's not going to keep them out. You need to net the boxes individually, which is more what Dr. Beal did with his boxes. So the best thing that came out of this was we got the grammar school kids involved, which is a big step in our town. So here we are picking the experiment up, and as you can see, a lot of anamorpha in the boxes. This looks like a big mat, but it's because of the angle. It's more just splotchy. I'll get back to the anamorpha in just a second. But here was the results of what we found. You can see on the left side there's how many clams, not many, but definitely netting a box was better than not netting a box. But that still didn't answer our question. Were there enough adults to repopulate the bay? So while we were walking around with our biologist, she noticed in the anamorpha, look at all this seed that's in the anamorpha getting caught up. So we're like, well, this is weird. There's more seed in the anamorpha than there is in the boxes. So that kind of threw us a curveball, but we could see, you know, we were getting some recruitment, but we still didn't have any clams. So then we went to the Dr. Beal boxes, which just got passed around, so we can go right through this. This is where we set them out. We had 8 stations around the bay. Each station had 5 boxes with 1 control box, so it's 6 in total. The control box didn't have a screen on the top. We had Maine Maritime students come and help us collect the boxes and tabulate the data. They did all the counting. So these are the species we found. So other than the sponge and the barnacles, those are all either shellfish or predators. That's what was in each box. And you can see soft shell. There was a pretty good amount of soft shell clams. So this was from Station 4, and I threw this in. I wanted to throw the kids a curveball, and boy, they hit it right out of the park. One of the boxes floated away from the experiment, and I saw it go away. And a week later, another box was starting to break apart and go away. And I said, I'll leave it for the kids and see what they do with experimental error. They just threw out site number 4 completely. I was like, okay, so they took care of that problem, but this is how many clams or shellfish we had at Station 4, which, after not seeing any clams for 5 or 6 years, this was, you know, pretty impressive that we actually had this. So here's the big result at the end. We're looking at, on the high end, 300 clams on average from that station. So some boxes had 700 or 800, some boxes had 400, but the average was 300 in those. So this answered the question. Yes, we do have enough adult clams to repopulate the bay. And this is when you put all the numbers together. The average number of clams in undamaged boxes, put that 100 and 200, almost 200 clams per box. And the control boxes, I mean, you know, what's that, 10? And it was even less in the core samples that went around the side. So, where do we go from here? I appreciate what Glenn did with this talk about water quality, but just because, we look at it from the angle that just because you opened up a place to harvest it, you didn't make any more clams. You have access to more clams, but you didn't make any. So what happens when that area gets dug out? Then you have to go and try to open more area. We're wondering, how do we grow clams in open areas? How do we get this recruitment to survive? How do we stop the predation, basically? You know, DMR, you know, Glenn said everybody likes to blame DMR. That's me. Their fishery management plan for shellfish, if you look it up, it's just a regurgitation of the existing rule. There is no plan. It's law and regulation. The only biological management tool is the 2-inch size limit. There's pretty much zero research budget, and this is the second most valuable wild fishery. I consider that an embarrassment. Most of the research that's being done is repetitive. Why waste your money where we've already been? We know what's happening. We need to look forward, not backwards. Right now, the management is based on a risk assessment model, or are the clams safe to eat? When a polluted flat meets the standards for human consumption, the entire flat is opened at once. This promotes derby fishing or a boom and bust cycle, which is not sustainable. This will continue as long as the municipal shellfish program is administered by the Bureau of Public Health, where water quality is the top priority. We believe this program, the municipal shellfish program, needs to be a standalone agency or combined with other biological-based shellfish programs like aquaculture, where growing shellfish is the priority. We all know that the Gulf of Maine is warming at an alarming rate, and we need to adapt to this change and determine how to grow shellfish under these changing conditions before Maine's iconic heritage and traditional clam fishery and its harvesters disappear. And that's just my thank you. So that's it.